Welcome to part 2 of this lecture. I'd like to begin by discussing how to monitor a medicine supply chain. To better monitor the medicine supply chain, many countries built Logistics Management Information Systems, or LMIS. Such systems are meant to collect, collate, and analyze data for better decision-making, and they are critical for monitoring a supply chain. The logistics cycle that you see here depicts the functions that work together to bring antiretroviral drugs and other commodities to the clients who need them. Supply chain management is focused on serving customers with an emphasis on ensuring the 6 rights to these customers: the right product, the right quantity, the right condition, in the right place, at the right time, for the right cost. You may ask why monitoring the supply chain is important in practice. This is because supply chain improvements enhance quality of care and support choices of treatment regimens by reducing stockouts of antiretroviral drugs. Better supply chain management improves cost effectiveness and efficiency of the supply chain and makes access to treatment easier. There are certain challenges in the supply chain management of antiretroviral drugs and HIV commodities. First of all, HIV/AIDS is a disease of major public health importance, which makes the supply chain network pretty complex. Secondly, comprehensive HIV/AIDS programs include more than 200 products. Furthermore, given new evidence, the treatment regimens are rapidly changing and the newer drugs and related commodities are introduced. There are still treatment gaps, while ART coverage targets are pretty ambitious. There are multiple and often uncoordinated supply chains within countries and personnel with inadequate skills in supply chain management and logistics. Another important aspect of procurements and distribution of antiretroviral drugs is their prices and the strategies and initiatives taken to reduce those prices in order to make treatment more accessible. During the past decade, various strategies have been tried and implemented on a large scale to reduce ARV prices in low and middle-income countries. The first strategy, procurement arrangements to increase purchase volumes, often involves pool-based procurement schemes that group multiple purchasers into single purchasing unit in the hope that economies of scale will lead to lower prices. A pooled procurement mechanism is developed at the Global Fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. The second large-scale strategy involves third-party consultations and price negotiation with generic ARV suppliers, a practice introduced by the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative in 2003. In practice, this initiative attempts to make ARVs more affordable by negotiating price ceilings. Countries that wish to become part of the consortium sign a memorandum of understanding with the Clinton HIV/AIDS initiative, and manufacturers are required to offer ARVs to these countries at prices equal or less than those negotiated with this initiative. The third strategy involves differential pricing, sometimes referred to as price discrimination or tiered pricing. Differential pricing pertains to branded ARVs and was introduced at the time when generic antiretrovirals were not yet available. Under differential pricing schemes, each manufacturer selects certain branded ARVs to be sold to low and middle-income countries at prices lower than those charged in high-income countries. Each of these strategies alone are often insufficient for achieving and sustaining universal access to HIV/AIDS treatment. Alternative strategies for reducing ARV prices should always be explored. Certainly, some general rules should always be used as basic approaches that I am sure you well know. This includes the availability of generic drugs on the market and their inclusion in the essential drug lists, and strengthening competition of drug producers and suppliers on the market. ART costs need to decrease further if scale-up of treatment is to be sustained. There have been dramatic reductions of the price of antiretroviral drugs over the past 10 years. You can see in this picture that the median prices of WHO-recommended first-line regimens in low- and middle-income countries have significantly decreased over time. The average cost of 1 year's supply of first-line ARVs fell from more than $10,000 per person in 2000 to $160–200 in 2011 for the currently preferred WHO regimens of tenofovir, emtricitabine, efavirenz, or tenofovir, lamivudine, efavirenz, illustrated by the gray line. This is a reduction of almost 98%. This reduction is due to a range of factors, including economies of scale that made possible by growing demand, competition between drug manufacturers, especially producers of generic drugs, reduced procurement costs, and determined advocacy by activists and multilateral agencies. Despite this prices reduction and increasingly efficient services delivery, the cost of ART remains a major barrier to a possibly massive treatment scale-up. These costs are determined by the prices of ARVs and diagnostics and by the cost of service delivery and program management. Most important to understand is that a combination of different strategies and approaches to decrease prices may actually indeed decrease the cost of drugs. But effort and time is needed. A good example of decreasing the cost of efavirenz at the country level in South Africa is shown here. In 2007, marked with the orange bullet, there was one supplier on the market. A year later, 6 voluntary licenses were awarded to generic producers, and as competition on the market increased, this certainly contributed to lowering the prices. Later, in 2010, a policy intervention made even more dramatic changes. A governmental tender with 10 suppliers was conducted, which consequently lowered the price of the drugs on the market even more. Let me summarize my lecture by reminding you of the goals of antiretroviral treatment. These are reaching maximum and durable viral suppression, restoration and preservation of optimal immune function, reduction of morbidity and mortality, and improvement of quality of life. Achieving these goals using the initial treatment regimen requires sustainable and uninterrupted access to efficacious, high-quality antiretroviral drugs. This is why antiretroviral drugs procurement and supply play a significant role in assuring good access to treatment. Thank you and good luck with the course.